Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel with the series of the autoheterophiles interviews. Today I'm joined by Jess, a transsexual woman, and she reached out to set up a conversation, and I'm glad that she's here. And yeah, we're just gonna talk a bit about some of her life experience to add one more narrative to the chorus. So yeah, thanks for coming on the channel, Jess.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me on.
I figure like maybe a good place to start is like chronologically. Um, just how was your childhood with regards to gender feelings? Like when did they first pop up, and like what were they like?
Yeah, so I don't remember like everything, or because I am 41 now, and this was all a long time ago. But um, the I definitely had some kind of, I guess, gender feelings. You would say by the time I started school. I I guess I sort of had a lot of female friends initially. And for whatever reason, I guess I kind of read as, um, kind of feminine or effeminate just because I kind of got bullied a lot around that, I suppose. I also just, but I liked kind of how I was. I didn't want to, not be that way. Um, and I guess I was sort of like proud around like I was very small. I was always happy that I was very small. And I guess when we were sort of starting to get to like I guess the time in school when like there was like that pre-puberty like boys and girls like I don't know. I remember when like the boys started chasing the girls, I kind of was like I kind of want to be chased, I guess, and be part of that. I wanted the boys to chase me too. Um,
Right. Yeah.
and and I don't know if that was like a pre kind of, I guess in retrospect, like maybe like a pre kind of like sexual feeling about that or something. But I kind of like not to like necessarily be the object, but I guess I wanted that kind of attention from boys. Uh,
Right. To be chased as a girl,
yeah,
or to have them be like, "Ew, she has cooties," or whatever.
yeah. Which like um, I got attention from boys, but a lot of it was kind of negative because of just not, I guess, like I said, reading is kind of, uh, you know, feminine or gay or something, um, which I didn't understand, but it was like I was sort of a pattern throughout my life, I guess, as a young person that I was always kind of read that way by everyone. So I didn't think I was doing anything in particular, but uh, people always seem to think that.
Right. Yes. I mean, yeah. If you were a bit smaller and maybe a bit feminine, I could see a lot of people thinking, "Oh, that person's gonna grow up to be gay," like
Which I
that
mean,
kind of thing.
I guess was sort of right, but yeah, I mean, depending on your point of view. Uh, um, but yeah, and then I guess as I got a little older, I kind of just started focusing a lot and just sort of very sort of strongly wishing that I was a girl, and kind of like ruminating on that. Like sometimes I would just kind of like stare out at other girls. I hope I didn't make anyone uncomfortable. But I say other, I shouldn't say other because that wouldn't make sense at that point in time. But
Well,
uh,
but that might have been how it felt, though.
right.
Yeah.
And yeah, but just I don't know. It just seemed obvious to me that that was like how you'd want to be. You wouldn't, at least for me, I didn't, want to feel like I should be a boy, and I didn't understand. Well, anyway, I don't know where I'm going with that, but it's hard to talk about stuff that's like that far back. But there was like
Yeah.
just a strong sense, I guess, that I didn't uh, that I wanted to be a girl, and I just thought about it a lot, pre puberty.
And like as you entered puberty, how did your feelings about gender change?
Yeah. So I guess so. When I entered puberty, I don't think they changed a ton. I will say sort of what was weird, and I don't really understand, and like part of me just like wants to beat myself up for like being like, I don't know, having like a weird, like there's like the part of myself that like looks from the outside and is like, oh, that's ugh. Why would you think those things? But like when I started like having any sort of like a sexual feeling or a fantasy, a lot of times it was around like kind of daydreaming that like somehow I would be changed into a girl. Like I remember having like maybe like almost like a I hate this term, it just feels gross, but like almost like a wet dream where it's like you would be like there's this machine that would be transforming you or would be making you into that, and possibly even forcibly. But and then like I do remember having kind of a moment where and this is why like I think I have to like be a little AGP, because otherwise like this wouldn't make sense. Is that I do remember like having a moment where something happened hormonally or whatever, and then I did like feel kind of an arousal towards like the female shape in a way that I didn't before. And like it never was something that like ever like integrated into like my life as anything I ever acted on, but like I had that feeling for like a little bit. I remember it. Um and
Like arousal at the just the thought of the female shape itself, or the idea of like becoming it?
It was more like becoming it, but like um I guess like I don't know. I think previously, like if I had had like my wish, like I would have just wanted to kind of be like almost just like stay a child, like where I didn't have any like really like developed like secondary sexual characteristics, I guess. Um which, would have been my preference to the, some of the puberty things that happened. But then I guess wanting to actually be like developed, I guess, in some way. I don't know if that makes sense.
Like
Um,
you, you that you wanted to, if you were to develop, like you're scared of developing, but if it did have to happen, you wanted it to happen more in like a female way.
yeah, yeah. I guess I'm not doing a good job at articulating this. I'm sorry. Um,
No worries. Um, yeah, and like how I think you said earlier before recording that you grew up in like a religious background, right?
yeah, so I did, and like I guess um, so like I did grow up in a religious background, very sort of conservative in most ways, and like I guess like I remember, when I sort of just started having those sort of like reoccurring feelings about kind of, wishing I was a girl, like I did, what you would do in a pre-internet time. And like I remember like being at the library and like trying to like look up things like sex change. And uh and like I learned a few of the words. Like I learned like transsexual. I learned uh, that I guess there was a surgery that existed, uh, and then I guess as I sort of learned those words, and like I knew I kind of had these feelings, and I guess I was smart enough to realize, um, I don't know, like my parents would listen to like Christian radio, and like, and this would have been in like the 90s, but Christian radio was like way ahead of things because they talked about transsexuals occasionally as being a very bad thing. Uh, and like, I
Oh,
don't know. I remember
it's
a
too
story about
bad.
like a teacher who was a transsexual and being like, "Oh my God, how could they possibly, have this like degenerate pervert like teaching kids?" Um,
What did you feel that they were degenerate pervert, or was just that how it was portrayed?
well, that was how it was portrayed, and like me as a young person, like I didn't really like have a ton of like I guess I wasn't separate. I hadn't like rebelled in any way like against like the values I was like brought up in, I guess. So like if I was taught that, it must be true, because that was kind of how I believed things. So at least as a young person, I didn't question that. So when I kind of identified that, I guess the feelings that I had were you know something that was, people who were, acting, I guess, on those feelings were, terrible degenerates who should, really be removed from society. It was hard not to kind of internalize that these were really bad feelings to have. I didn't
Yeah.
like not, you didn't, obviously, I didn't have a choice to like not have them or, um, but I felt really bad about it. Um,
Yeah. How did you when did your gender dysphoria start getting particularly bad?
well, so, it kind of got worse like for the most part like every year after puberty started. Like I probably, it was getting worse before that, but it certainly got like more bad during puberty. And just because like you kind of felt like, I don't know, it kind of felt like you were dying because I don't know, I was seeing things start to happen to my body that were really kind of disturbing, like and I kind of got more and more depressed as I got older. So I think I mentioned that I was like bullied pretty hard in school. So when I'm in third grade, I actually get pulled out of school because I'm having a lot of trouble. And like my parents even like recognize it. So so I get like homeschooled for I guess 6 years, 6.5 years. So like that kind of like at least like pulls me out of like sort of some of like the social bullying, but like I still end up getting sent to like boys summer camp, and like my dad's like, oh, you should get a Boy Scouts, and like a bunch of like things that are more like bullying kind of instances. Also some like probably like also some probably realizing I also like boys experiences there too, but but so I had this like moment where I was like not, in school for a period of time. And like, I guess it was just sort of like building like depression over time. And like, I guess by the time like I go back to school as like in high school, and then um, like, I just like, I don't know, my parents, like, I don't smile in pictures. Like, they're always like, smile, and I never smile. And and then I guess I get put on my grades like really start to slip, like to where I'm like failing classes, having a really hard time. Um, I was extremely lucky to have actually graduated high school. Like I did it by like having to make up a bunch of courses, like correspondence wise, and I sort of get put on a high dose of an antidepressant, about 14, I guess, as a way of like trying to cope. Um, and I sort of know some of the things, but I guess just due to kind of some of the messaging like I've internalized from like my parents, like I don't think I can, you know, be super open with them about it, even though, or kind of with even like counselors are having me see, because when you're not 18, um, like um, they can go right to your and these are Christian counselors too, by the way. They can go right to your parents with like whatever you tell them, uh, which is kind of scary. Um,
Yeah, it's risky.
yeah, and like I did have a few counselors who, like everybody thought I was gay, so I got some like I don't know, I got sent to like some um, where I got assigned to like read books and like to do other things that were like I don't know, everything was like kind of, I guess the theory was at the time that like you'd failed to like correctly identify with boys at like the right um, stage of development, and that was why you were less masculine or something, or might have a cross sex. So there were all these like goofy books about it that were like imagining like, oh, you failed to like bond with other boys on like the baseball team or something. Um, but okay, I feel like I'm just like completely trauma dumping, and I'm sorry. But so
I know that's what
I
this is
guess,
for, right?
yeah. So when I am 16, I have kind of my first, you know, I guess like kind of cry for help suicide attempt, I would say, and get hospitalized for a couple days. And uh, I talk about kind of some of the things that are bothering me a little bit in there, but then I'm like, you have to not, tell my parents. And fortunately, they don't. Like, because in my head, like I'm gonna be like, they're gonna like kill me, or I'm gonna get completely disowned, and I'm not gonna have anywhere to go, or I don't know. I built this up like that. This is like the worst thing ever, and there's no way they'll ever be able to, you know, deal with it or something. Um, and then I guess about a year after that, I have like probably a more credible suicide attempt where I do have to get my like stomach pumped and stuff. But crap, I don't know. Maybe
What,
I don't.
like
I shouldn't even be telling this. I don't know why. Sorry.
after the right, like after those suicide attempts, did that spur you to finally go to like a gender clinic, or like how did you start pursuing gender transition?
Yeah, so I am seeing like a therapist, and I have kind of a late birthday, so when I'm seeing a therapist and like on these like super high doses of uh Effexor and Zoloft, and they even have me on like a I guess an antipsychotic, which I later found out they were telling me it was something to like help me sleep, but um, it was like Seroquel or something. Um, but So I was sort of seeing this therapist, and like at that time, I guess I'm kind of very very disassociated, I guess, but I kind of like think that I'm just like I don't know. I'm wired to like to off myself. Like that's where my life is headed at this point. Like I'm not going to make it past like 2000 or 2001 or whatever. Like I'm done. Like I kind of was like convinced of that, because like the depression only ever gets worse, and like I don't see a way out. So like I eventually, like right after I turn 18, but when I'm still in school, I like sort of come clean to this therapist I'm seeing, who's kind of like initially like, okay, um, you know, that's doesn't know anything about it, because they don't have any, knowledge about, gender medicine or anything like that. But I tell them, and then like to their credit, they like do some research and kind of figure it out. And then they sort of say, well, look, you have to tell your parents. Like you can't just not like this is eating you up. You have to tell them. So um, and like I don't know. I guess he ends up being kind of like vaguely supportive, just because he's seen me suffer for a long time. Like vaguely supportive of like the idea that, well, maybe this you should like you know, transition, like even finds like stories of like, oh, well, this is like a Christian person who did it, mostly like 40-year-olds and things. And sort of, you know, I guess integrates that a little bit into his worldview. I always think I need to like call this guy and be like, oh my God, thank you so much. I haven't talked to him since literally this happened, but I don't know if he's still practicing.
Yeah, I bet you could
But
find him.
yeah, we end up like, I guess the like tail end of my senior year of high school, like, we end up like telling my parents like and like a session, and it goes really really badly. And I guess like they you know, think it's um you know, kind of a bad idea, and kind of move me to basically therapists who don't sort of support it at that point. But shortly after that, I turn, you know, I graduate like barely from high school. And then I kind of just, like, I had like a car I was using. And like my parents sort of said, well, you know, if you graduate, like you can have this car. Like we bought it for you, but like if you graduate, like the car is yours. Like, uh, and so like really after I graduate, I just and I've left out some stuff in the middle of this story too, like other things I was doing in my spare time. Um, I just end up taking kind of my graduation money and leaving, and like packing up all my stuff and just like driving to like way out of a different part of the city, and kind of like um, I don't know, having kind of a tough time of it initially. Like I stayed on some like friends' couches. I like stayed in like some rent by the week hotels. I was like briefly in like an LGBT like group home, I guess. And then yeah, I just kind of like leave. And I guess by this point I had like made, so I guess there's another point. So when I like get a car as like a teenager, I start like going out initially to like I start like buying some clothes, and I start like initially going out to like a youth like LGBT center, and then I end up making some friends, and then like those end up being friends that like I just start going to clubs with. And this is like probably like 16, 17 era, like during like the height of the depression. But so I'm kind of like, I have a friend who's covering for me to some extent, like who I go to school with, who will like, you know, if I, you know, am going out, like she'll say like, oh yeah, they were, you know, over at, you know, my house or whatever. Eventually, like this all comes to light, and I get in a lot of trouble for it. But I, you know, make friends with some trans people and just some other kind of like more accepting people, almost all of whom are like older than me. Like there weren't really like hardly even anyone in like their 20s. It was all like older folks. But people who I take it back. There were some people in their late 20s. But and yeah, I got in this like group of people where we would sort of like go out to clubs, and then I guess I started realizing like I could I guess I could go out and like pretty much kind of blend in. You know, I guess as a girl, obviously, I think it's probably the thing I'm not saying here. And like this is like pre like a lot of, you know, broadly like trans visibility. So people aren't necessarily like looking out for that in the way they were.
Right,
And
it was easier to pass back then.
right. And like, so I'm not having done anything, physical at this point. But I'm like 5'4", and I don't, um, I have an easy time of it, I guess. And so I sort of had been doing that kind of off and on for a few years, and then just it was weird because I guess it just um, it was, I don't want to say it was like frictionless, but like the way I guess the way I was naturally, like I felt like always got me in a lot of trouble and got me a lot of negative attention. But like just sort of take the way I am just in general, um and like people see like a girl who's that way, I get a lot of positive attention, and like people are more like, we understand you, we get you, you're a fun person to be around. um and it just like, it feels like so much, just better and like less complicated. um I don't know if that's a good way of putting it, but like when I started doing that, it was sort of I guess like it was it made it seem obvious to me that this was what was supposed to, like, how I was supposed to be.
Right, because it was just easier for you and you could just sort of be how you
Yeah,
naturally were.
yeah, I could just sort of be, because like, I don't know, I guess I felt like I had to do a lot of, like, I don't know, sort of self-policing, I guess, to like, it would be like you would, someone would like say something to you or whatever else, and like I felt like I had to develop like this filter that I would like kind of run everything through to be like, what's gonna, be the correct, thing to do or way to behave. It's like not gonna kind of get me into trouble or have people think I'm weird or something, or not masculine. and and it sort of like made you really detached. It sort of slowed everything down. It was hard to interact when you're having to do this with everything you do.
Right, with that constant self-monitoring, you
Yeah.
kinda, like yeah, it adds the conscious effort required to do that kinda, like, pulls you out of being in the moment.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like, and like I had like a lot of, disassociation when I would, I guess, be a boy, for lack of a better word, like especially like as a teenager. So it's almost like, I don't know, I felt like it was like you were just like, you were pulled back, and like you're watching, somebody go through some sort of motions, and it's like, oh, okay, I have to do something, and like, I don't know, like you're watching it all on the TV or something. It's not um so much you're doing it, but it's not, you're not whatever that is. Like you're just it's like very delayed.
Right, yeah, that sounds like you're kinda describing, like, I forget which term, either depersonalization or derealization, where you're kinda, like, watching yourself from a third person perspective.
Yeah. Um but but yeah, I mean, so like I didn't really have a ton of like support, I guess, other than I knew some people. And then when I moved out, like I said, it was really tough. I like didn't have any money, I didn't have a job. I eventually like was able to get a job. um I had like a few, kind of friends, I guess, that I had made who kind of were, making sure I didn't starve, for a little while. I had an older, I say older, she's like my age, or I'm like her age now, an older trans woman who, uh, before I had, gotten like a prescription, I guess, had a prescription and was willing to kind of give me some of her like HRT, which at that time was like either like for men or like off labeling, like birth control and stuff. It wasn't the same stuff that it is now. But but then I got into a, I guess like a trans like therapy group, which was like, it was like kind of like sliding scale, like what can you afford? And it was like probably like 6 or 8 people once a week. And then I guess I ended up getting enough like times I'd gone to that to where um, the lady who ran it was like willing to like write me a letter or like a referral letter for like HRT. And then she also wrote a letter to like my parents to like try to like bring them back into my life. It's like, oh, we got to get your parents involved again and stuff. And at least at that time, that still kind of went badly. Uh, my parents and I are great now. This is all like they feel terribly guilty about everything, and it's all
Right.
like
It just took them a while,
it's
right?
been a while. I always feel bad because like I'm like I don't want you to feel bad. Like I just like I don't know how I would have reacted. Like I don't know, especially with like their kind of religious background. Um, I don't know. Like I try
Right,
not
yeah,
to feel bad about it. There wasn't like it wasn't like now where there was a lot of awareness. So
yeah, and since they wouldn't have any idea what it is, it would be more scary to them.
yeah, yeah, they didn't really have yeah, other than like probably the stuff I heard like on Christian radio or something. Um, they didn't have a lot of awareness or couldn't point to anybody who positive like oh this is okay, it worked out.
Um, how like, you got that letter for HRT, um, how did you start transitioning at that point once you got that? Like, when did you start?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess, I mean, technically kind of before because I, for the most part, like had already kind of gone to, presenting as myself, like even before that for the most part. And like I said, there wasn't really the visibility. Are you okay, Phil?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
no, I
why
didn't
do I
see the
look
blinking.
weird?
I was making sure. No.
Oh, like whether I was, like, having a seizure or something? Yeah. I know,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think my
No,
eyes are yeah, I've noticed that sometimes I just seem to blink a lot, like, when I look at the video on here, but I don't even notice I'm doing it.
okay, okay, yeah. No, you're good. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to like pull out of the moment.
No
Um,
worries.
what was I saying?
You were talking about, like, how you started transitioning?
Yeah,
Or how you
so like like for the most part I was kind of like I guess, dressing how I wanted to and kind of like largely presenting that way. And like for the most part, like out in the world, like that was fine. Like nobody really blinked and noticed me. Like I was just normal. Even like pre, taking HRT for the most part, which, is just very fortunate for me, I guess, and probably just the luck of genetics and also there's being less visibility towards that.
Yeah.
But
Well,
the
it sounds like
problem
you're
was
quite short,
getting a
so
job.
it sounds like you kind of won the genetic lottery to some extent in terms of, like, transitioning.
Right, right. Yeah, like yeah, that, yeah, I was very, fortunate in that way. And like, I don't know, my whole family, like, we're like kind of slight people and stuff. And like, if you're around my family, it's like, oh my God, like everyone's like, there's like no one over like 5'8" in this entire family. But, so like if you're around my family it's like oh I'm like totally within like the range of like that, but like within broader society it's like oh we're kind of just small people or I'm like a small person, so especially for like a genetic male, right? Like like
Yeah.
way down on that height distribution. But um so I was sort of doing that, but the biggest problem was that like documents actually, because like I had to get a job and I had to go apply somewhere, and I didn't have any like obviously my documents would say like I'm male and I have a male name and and things like that. So like I tried to so I ended up getting a job at like a company where I could, it was really just like a company where I could use my car. And it was it was like, it was almost like, like, I don't know, like Uber Eats, but not, it was like I was in a fairly large city. So they had like a service that literally was like a fax machine based, like service like that where you could order from different restaurants and stuff. And you were like in your car all the time. And like, I applied there and like, I, dressed up like a boy and like went to apply and I got the job. Obviously it was like, very easy to get because it's like literally just like you drive stuff around. And then, like, it's funny, I found out in retrospect, like, because I guess I had already taken a little bit of HRT from like my 40 something year old friend. So like I found out like later that like the person who interviewed me was like confused as hell. It was like, well, he says he's a boy, but he has breasts, and like this whole like it was just this whole thing I found out later from somebody else, but they didn't know what I was. But but I did that, and then I worked for a while, and I guess as I was doing that, I was applying to get my name changed, which like was all you could really do at that time, like without like surgery letters or something. You couldn't change your your marker. But like the name was really the more important part. Nobody paid attention to the marker, or at least I didn't think they did so much.
Yeah. No, the
Um,
name's definitely more important and how you look.
yeah. So like after I was sort of like doing that job, and then I got my name changed, and then I went and applied to be a server, just like me, at like a restaurant, and they didn't really like obviously I had at that point I had like a proper ID and like a name document, and I got a job as a server, and then I got another job as a server, and I ended up working in restaurants for like a long time. But uh, and was just sort of like supporting myself that way as I mean, I guess I don't even like the term transition, but I guess it's like I continued to like transition, or which in my case was really just like continued to take hormones because that was all I could possibly afford to do. Um, and and then I got my first like steady boyfriend. Like we got an apartment together. Eventually, I like started school again, and then eventually, like this whole thing just like turns back into a normal life. But
Um, how yeah, are you married?
I am married. Yeah, I've been married about 10 years. Roughly, we celebrated 10 years last month, which was cool.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Um, that was a whole, yeah, that was a whole thing. But I guess, I don't know, the whole, that was like the biggest, um, like, I don't know, like, I don't know if everyone, I think most people probably just like are upfront or like talk about that or just like openly trans. So maybe it's fine. But like, I don't know. No one ever talks about how much like it sucks when you're younger and like you're trying to date guys and you don't have the parts they're expecting you to have. It's like a whole. It's difficult. It's not fun. It really sucked.
Yeah, it sounds really hard to do that, especially
Yeah.
because you'd have to like develop interest in them and feel it out first before even like telling them that, and then just the risk of like fearing the rejection or whatever.
Yeah, well, and it's not like I'm not like a super assertive person. Like some people probably are more assertive or and like and plus like if you lead with it, like I think nobody would want to get to know you. Like at least like the guys you want to date, like because why? Like there's more fish in the sea. Like nobody wants to just um so like even with my current husband, of course, like fortunately by the time like we got together, I was like, post surgery. It took me ages to like afford that. Like of basically waiting tables until I had the money to do that. But like I don't know, even that situation was like we'd been dating and I told him and he kind of like freaked out for like a week and then he was okay. and then we like eventually got married. But like he didn't take it well, particularly at the time. But and I also probably didn't tell him soon enough. But we're good with it now. Like we've talked about it. I'm like, why did I wait so long? And he's like, no, I get it. Like it's not something you lead with. And like I don't know, he just had to like kind of wrap his head around it. And I guess I don't know. I always think practically, well, it's like okay, it means we can't have biological kids, right?
Yeah.
That's like the important part. But I guess the other important part is like, oh, am I gay? Or like
Right, that he has to work out that,
he has to
like, whether he's
work that out,
gay.
right? And if
Yeah.
he's okay with it. So um but
Right, I guess yeah, but hopefully he realized that he's not gay if he was, like, attracted to your femininity.
yeah, no, yeah, he's not gay. He's quite straight. Um, and yeah, and like I don't know, and like we're like yeah, I would never want him to like see me any differently, and like I don't think he does. It's funny, we like knew each other like from working in restaurants like for years before we dated. So like when I told him, like he had like 5 years of like already having known me like as me before like I tell him this. So like at least like I don't think it like I think it was like something he could integrate without like really seeing me that differently. um
Yeah. Um, I'm curious, how did you, um, like, in all of this stuff, like, did you ever encounter the concept of autogynephilia during this time? Or, like, how when did you do that?
yeah, well, so um I I don't it's I don't know exactly when I first encountered it. So what I remember from sort of being like in retrospect, I know a lot of people are autogynephilic from the trans communities. Like when I learned about it and when I like heard it, it was like, oh, this explains like so and so and so and so and so and so and like a lot of the people that
Right, it
I
was, like,
knew.
easy to find examples, right?
Yeah, like I just knew all these people. It's like, oh yeah, that person I knew 20 years ago. Like obviously this was them, and like I guess it was like you sort of at that point there wasn't like a lot of as much trans youth I guess as there are now, or at least visibly. So at least where I was. Um, so that in itself was a little unusual, but it would be there would be obviously as like some of those older like married or have been married or largely heterosexual like history kind of trans women who came out. Like the people I made friends with were like a few like trans women who were in their 20s who are closer to my age. So like probably like 8 or 9 years older, but like closer. And like including like I stayed in a house for like or an apartment for 6 months with like two other trans women, but like both of them I guess would have been autogynephilic. And like there were a couple of things that I thought were interesting about them, like and things they would say, I guess, that like in retrospect, like kind of like about some sort of like attraction to self and like, oh, I wouldn't, even be doing this if I didn't think I could be hot or something. Um,
Yeah.
and and then I guess also um I also this is a funny one. I'm pretty sure I like long term dated an AGP, like probably for like 7 years, and or 6 or 7, because one of the like when I'm like in my 20s, so like probably like 22 to like 29, I'm dating this guy who I like met like in that sort of first job that I had, and like the advantage, like I didn't date him at that time, but like he there was like we ran into each other and he was like, oh, I always really liked you, and kind of looked me up. And like the advantage with like dating him is like he already knew because I had been at that first job with him where I was like kind of didn't have my papers right, and like was kind of like in between, and like he was like a relatively okay boyfriend for like a few years, but then he sort of started telling me about like I guess like his you know, kind of like wanting to cross dress, I guess.
Yeah.
And which I initially was like sort of okay, to some extent okay with, and like I think I had like a complex at that point about kind of how hard I thought it was, and I guess this is also as like a pre-surgery person to like actually like you know find a guy who'd like be cool with it all, who wasn't just like a total creep. So but like we eventually like broke up for sort of other reasons because he was kind of abusive, or like became so at some point. But I don't know. I think he may have transitioned at some point. But I also like in retrospect, I realized I think he was dating me as kind of like a like he would compliment me, but I think he kind of had this like vicarious thing going on. Uh,
Yeah, the sort of thing that a lot of chasers or gamps have.
yeah, where he um, was you know seeing kind of something he you know wanted or really liked in me, and then like I initially yeah, I was like very kind of mad at him because I felt like I told him that like you're dating me because like you're fascinated by this aspect of me or something. He was like, no, that's not it. But I think he was.
Yeah, and it makes sense that he denied it. Like all the pretty much like a lot of the chasers or gamps, they know that they have to deny it or else their like trans girlfriend's not gonna want to be with them.
Yeah. Well, and like I went through like I had like a couple you know, like older guys who like were obviously gamps at one point, like offered to take me on dates. So I went on like a couple dates with like people who I guess would probably be obvious gamps. Although like I don't know, a lot of them like had like I guess like kind of fetishy clothing stuff, I guess, where it would be like, oh, like let's go out to dinner and then I'm gonna take you to like I want to buy you stockings and I want to buy you a corset or something. And I want to get you fitted for a corset. Like I don't know, just like things with like clothing and wanting to see you in certain types of clothing. It was
Yeah, they wanted to like feminize you with clothing.
yeah, I guess.
Yeah, that's definitely a common pattern of behavior I've heard about. Did you ever pursue any surgeries?
Yeah, well, really only one. Was just sort of I did go to Thailand at some point just for the kind of for the I guess the bottom surgery as they're calling it now. And and yeah, that was good. I guess the only thing that was sort of tough about it was I had well okay I guess I'm saying there's another surgery too because I guess I had orchiectomy when I was like 19, just because that was something I could afford to do, and I didn't, you know, I was worried about. I didn't want to have to take like huge doses of things um, to like try to. Not that I don't think I had ever like super high testosterone or something, but you didn't like that idea,
Right,
and
yeah, you can never be too careful, right?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I did that, and then it was like almost like a decade later before I could actually afford surgery, because I like you know literally was like waiting tables. I had like sort of barely graduated high school. I had no college. I had no real skills. Uh, so I did eventually go to college, like later on, like in my 20s. But then as I was paying for that, like obviously I couldn't like save like huge amounts of money for surgery. I had some loans, but like I actually didn't have it really until I broke up with my long-term boyfriend. Then I like booked it like like I feel like 6 weeks after that, because I guess as long as I was in that relationship, I wasn't going to do anything. But then I don't know. It was better because I mean, obviously, like I wasn't comfortable with it, so like I didn't um, you know like it or like interacting with it. I guess I don't know. That probably for my life history probably wouldn't be surprising. Um, but but I guess the one thing I would say is like because it had been like so long, and because I'd had orchiectomy and I'd been on like HRT for like so many years. They didn't have much skin, so I have like whatever the colon version of that, where they take a
Oh
piece
yeah.
or uh,
And has it worked all right in terms of like complications and functionality and such?
yeah, yeah, it's actually been, I mean, it's been fine. Like, I don't have anything to compare it to, obviously. So I don't know, like,
Right.
how it varies to, like, I don't even really like, I don't know. I don't like, I won't say I don't like vaginas, but I just don't, I wouldn't want to look at it. I don't really like looking at those. Uh, for the most part. But yeah, I mean, it seems fine. Like I didn't like wait. I remember after I got it, I didn't like wait the proper amount of time. So like one of the first times, like I kind of had sex like post, it was like I started bleeding, and then like he was like, "Oh my god," freaked out. Um, are you on your period or something? He's like, "No, I'm sorry. I don't know why this happened." Um, okay, I'm sorry. That is like super TMI. I don't know why I told you that.
I mean, I don't think it's TMI. Like I've read a lot of stuff with regarding like sexology and stuff. Like it doesn't squick me
Yeah,
out. But it,
yeah. Well,
you took it for a test drive like too early, basically.
yeah, yeah. I guess I sort of like yeah, I came back and like I didn't really even intend to, but um like I was, out on a date, and kind of like one thing led to another, and I was in bed, and then and it just sort of happened. But yeah, I mean it's been fine. Like I don't think um like I imagine like whatever the actual female experience is probably like way better in terms of like feeling and stuff. And it's I can't really I don't care, because like what was I comparing to, which was like kind of not being able to do anything with that part of my body. Like I can't orgasm from like vaginal intercourse like I can from like masturbation or uh, mouth stuff, I guess. Uh, but I don't think that's um, terrible. It's just
Right. Yeah. No. That. I mean, that sounds like an alright outcome, especially because like you wouldn't have like having a penis would have just been in the way and been not useful to you at all, right? And whereas like now you have the parts that don't make you that you prefer to have, and also since you prefer to date men, it's what they want too.
yeah. It's like it's hard because yeah, it's not kind of what yeah, like I said earlier, it's like nobody appreciates how hard it is to not have the parts guys expect you to have and like go on dates and stuff. It's just it's a whole thing. And like not that you don't like, I think there's still obviously an obligation to like disclose, and but it's like it's a lot easier to get past, I think, if it's like more kind of abstract. um I guess
Right.
like
Yeah.
someone's you used to be like this or something, not like, oh my god, eek a penis or something. um
Yeah, that is probably way easier for the guys to handle. Um, I'm curious why you felt, like, why were you interested in coming on my channel?
well, I guess I don't know. So I watched some of your interviews, and I guess I felt like, because, and I don't know, you can tell me if I'm wrong about this. I felt like because I had had sort of some of those like sexual feelings around like transformation and stuff like that. When I hit puberty, that might signal like that seems like AGP ish, despite the fact that like I obviously, date men and have always dated men. Uh, and I guess I sort of wanted to explore that a little bit just because I don't know. I don't, I feel like there's parts of my history that like fit the more, HSTS narrative. And, but I don't know. I guess I thought maybe I was like just an odd type of autographile and maybe internalized some of the cross feelings like really, really early, but I also could be wrong. I could just be gay. Uh, and I don't really
Well,
know. So
I mean, like you said that I do think that the sort of the erotic interest in transformation that you mentioned around puberty is kind of an indicator of being of the autogynephilic ideology. Um,
yeah, well, and I wanted to like kind of fully explore that, I guess, to see if that was the case and if that made sense. Even if like because I don't know, like it would seem like even if like it would seem like just like randomly, like if there's autogynephiles out there, like some of them have to be feminine as kids, right? Um,
right, yeah, and just because people of either sex they vary in a distribution, and
or
yeah,
like
some of them would be feminine, and like some of them would also have like very strong autogynephilia, which would like assert itself earlier.
yeah, I guess that's sort of what I was like wondering if maybe yeah, that like maybe I
Y-
had, more of that than was
The
obvious. And I guess also just wondering if like some of my attraction to men, like if there was like a meta attraction element to it. Although I don't think like, I think at this point in my life, like obviously it's couldn't obviously just be that because it wouldn't have been enough, I think, to, make that as singularly focused. But I guess I've wondered, I wanted to try to figure that meta attraction thing out more and see if there was
right,
any.
yeah, I do think that for some people that have meta attraction, it's like particularly if it's their only attraction to others, like if they're not attracted to women at all, like they don't have any like they don't have sort of the conventional attraction to compare it to anyway, so it'd be hard to know either way in terms of them feeling different. But I do think that that some that when there's androphilic trans women, the ones that are into men, that they're they're not all HSTS, and that some of them are autogynephilic but have it to a degree that eliminates their attraction to women while also having the meta attraction. Um, like Blanchard theorized that the bisexual trans women were those who had that secondary interest in men that arose from their autogynephilia, and he proposed that the asexual trans women were the ones that their autogynephilia was so strong that it sort of overshadowed or nullified the original gynephilia. And it like if you combine those two sort of like theoretical propositions that autogynephilia can create attraction to men and it can also eliminate attraction to women, like it follows that there's going to be some autogynephilic people that have basically no attraction to women and only attraction to men, and it would then be hard to sort of distinguish based on their orientation which type they are. Um, I do think though that you mentioning also as a kid that you like wished to be a girl quite often, and also like that you wanted And I don't know if sometimes HSTS feel like they wish boys would chase them, but, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, the wanting to be chased by a boy might be, like, sort of like a childhood manifestation of what would later be seen as meta attraction. But, um, I guess, yeah, when bringing this up, like, I think some people get really nervous about, like, whether they think that meta attraction is not genuine attraction, but I don't think that's a helpful way of thinking about it. Like, if you are genuinely attracted to just men, and you, like, love your husband and wanna be with him, and, like, you treat each other well, I think that's what matters rather than whether theoretically, like, where that attraction came from.
Yeah. Yeah, I no, I mean, I agree. I guess I've been trying to, yeah, just sort of figure it out, and if it made sense to say that, I guess. I don't know. I feel like I had like an emotional attachment sometimes to, being seen as feminine or being thought of as feminine, in a way that had made me wonder if like that was an AGP thing. Um, or something. But
Yeah,
like I
I
said, I
mean,
guess like
this
it would
seems
be
a little
easier if I could
AGP.
like point to like being into women or something, or like having relationships with women, and I could be like, oh, I'm obviously.
Right. Yeah. Um,
Not that I'm like trying to be AGP or something. That would make no sense. But I am
no,
just trying to figure out.
right, yeah, I think you're just trying to figure it out because when there are cases like yours where you have sort of gender issues earlier in life, and then you only have attraction to men, there's, like, many aspects of it that have, like, a similarity to how the HSTS trajectory is described, and so I can understand wanting to figure out, like, which of these describe you.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and like I don't know. Like I guess. Um, I feel like I would have been more into like gay culture or something, maybe in a way that I wasn't, or like,
Right, yeah.
and I don't know. I didn't.
Like,
Uh,
did you feel that your desire to be a woman, like, did you take it, like, very seriously? Like, this, like, a serious, important thing, being a woman?
Um, I guess in so much as uh, I guess I felt like I wasn't happy that I wasn't, and it just made me unhappy. I don't know. I guess. Well, like I don't know what you mean by that exactly.
Oh, that yeah, I don't know how to tangibly describe it, but just, like, that femininity is a serious matter, like, it's not to be taken lightly. Like, for example, like, I know some autogynephiles have when they see drag, for example, they don't like it because they think it's kind of like making fun of femininity, but they take it very seriously, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I guess. I guess I'm inclined to answer like no to that. I don't take it.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I do. I don't. Yeah. I'm not.
No, I mean, all of us are different. I point out patterns that, like, recur, but it's not like it recurs in every person, you know?
Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, like kind of my experiences with the people that like I kind of identified later as having been AGP were not particularly like relatable experiences, but like there's these things around the edges that I think that, I think I can sort of, relate to. And, but, maybe those, I don't know, maybe those things cross over, or maybe, I don't know, like I said, or maybe it's just like a super early kind of like I guess it would be like if it just sort of overtook my whole like because that wanting to be a girl was like strong early enough, maybe it just like overtook any sexuality that could have been different. later or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say for certain. Um, when you I forget if I asked you this already. Let me know if I did. Like, when you encountered the concept of autogynephilia, like, how did you feel about it?
Um, it was kind of um, it's kind of worrying to be honest. I guess because like um, well, a little bit in the sense that I just like if at like a gut level, like being around, you know, um, if there was like I don't know, like it seems weird to like I guess kind of get off on you know some of those like womanly traits, I guess, and like and it also would feel weird to me to like be you know near someone who was like um you know in a space I was in or in a um or in yeah I guess really like in a space who was there because like I guess I don't know like the I guess this is probably like the gender critical like bad view of it is like that's weird, that's kind of creepy, I guess, and like it seems like a strange thing to like have you know sexual energy towards, I guess. So that was kind of my initial maybe a little bit of disgust, um, but it also sort of made sense from like people I had known who I think like had some sexual feelings towards their own bodies, I guess. But I'm sorry, this is like, I'm not meaning to, this is not like my current view on this, but I guess that was my initial kind of reaction is
Yeah, I
maybe.
mean that no, that's fine. I mean, I wouldn't judge you for having those sort of feelings. Um, I think all of us have like that have related to autogynephilia have ha- maybe had those feelings to some extent and may even still have them to some extent, and it's something that kind of all of us have to grapple with is like becoming okay with having this type of sexuality that is not intuitively understood by a lot of people, and it can be quite confusing.
Yeah.
Um,
And like, you know, I think if I had like maybe some of those more, like, I already feel weird, like, for the fact that like I had those sort of sexual feelings around transformation like even that like if I'm just like me as like a person who's internalized like what is normal and like not normal in the world like I like look at somebody who has those feelings and be like oh that's weird like you're that's kind of like it's kind of like a weird like fetish or something so like it's hard even not to look at that like a little bit judgy like even if it be towards like towards myself I guess I don't
right. Even though it's not necessarily like
it's not something you pick
harming anyone, just that it's
yeah
weird.
it's just weird I guess and like, oh, I don't know. I mean, I think if it's like, I don't know. I guess like, um, like I guess I get some of the sort of like, I guess like gender, you know, critical or whatever kind of reactions towards, even though it's like a very caricatured like version of what autogonophilia is. It's like the worst like behaving people with like the worst motives. But like, I guess if like you just like think about the concept, like and the fact like somebody might be like in a space who like has sort of those feelings towards like the female body like I get why there's that sort of you know like feeling of like oh that's a creepy person I don't want to be around that person like I sort of I think it's like probably a misunderstanding but like I get why people might react that way I guess.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think it is. There are quite a few people that initially react that way. And like you said, the gender criticals, they usually put forward examples that are particularly objectionable. Um, Whereas like the well-behaved AGPs are not going to be appearing in any of these videos of misbehavior or anything like that just because they're privately living their lives.
Yeah, yeah, and like I think that that exists obviously, and is is fine, but yeah, yeah. It's funny how like I guess I don't know, my kind of reintroduction to like some of this topic was, I guess, some of like the trans visibility stuff like in 2015, and like I don't know, I didn't really like where it was going, I guess, in terms of, I guess, all the attention it was getting, and then I guess like I don't know, some of the extremes. So like I don't know, I definitely like, kind of like I like read the gender critical subreddit when that was a thing, and like still read over it and things like that. I don't know if that's like self-harm, but like I think the views on that have gotten more like um it's gotten more caricatured, and like it's angrier than it used to be.
Right, and it already started out pretty bad.
Yeah. um so like I don't know, in some ways I'm like, if I was just like I don't I get where I think I get where it comes from though. um but it's just not like informed, and I guess if you just don't have anything that tethers you to like really needing to understand it, or wanting to understand it more, you can you know just kind of give in to just kind of like, I hate it all and it needs to go away.
Yeah, because if for their particular politics, it's like portraying it negatively is helpful, and so
Yeah.
understanding it is not the priority so much as achieving particular political ends.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you're doing good work trying to explain it, of course.
Oh, thank you. Um, yeah, it's looking like we've been going a bit over an hour. Is there any other things you'd want to share with the audience that you may have forgotten?
um yeah, I don't, not really, I don't think. um yeah, I don't know if this was useful to anyone. I hope it I hope it was. But yeah, thank you for speaking with me. um
Yeah, thanks for having the bravery it takes to talk about this stuff. I know it's like not the most relaxing subject to talk about,
yeah, yeah, it's yeah, it can be tough, I guess.
but yeah, I appreciate it. I think it'll be good to have another um recording of another trans woman's experience because I'm trying to get more of those on the channel, and someone like you that had the experience of sort of having gender issues for quite early in age and having them be quite bad, and transitioning early before it was cool and all that stuff. I think it's an important uh experience to hear about.
uh yeah, well, thank you. I hope someone listening, it helps somebody.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks for coming on the channel, Jess. I'm going to stop recording now.